The rain hasn't let up, neither has Richard Blackwood's voice. You should have left with your pride, Elena, not beg with your dead husband's name. She shields her son. Mark steps forward, jaw clenched, rain in his eyes. Ranger, his dog, growls at Richard's feet. They think she's just a widow. What they don't know, the final evidence buried in her husband's field journal is already in Mark's hands. And this time Elena's silence ends with thunder. She lost her husband. She won't lose justice. Let us know where you're watching from, and what time you discovered this video. We read all comments through the tinted windows of my Mercedes. I, Richard Blackwood, observe them like insects caught in the rain. Elena, my own flesh and blood, clutches her son Leo's shoulder, their pathetic collection of belongings turning soggy on the sidewalk. My custom Italian leather steering wheel creaks under my grip as I watch them, my Rolex catching the dim afternoon light. That watch cost more than their monthly rent paid for with money that was rightfully mine. David's death benefits belonged in capable hands. My hands. The steady drumming of rain against my car's roof should drown out these irritating whispers of conscience. But something else catches my eye. A service dog. A Belgian Malinois, just like the one David handled in Afghanistan. My throat tightens as I watch it approach Elena and Leo, its handler, close behind. Mark Stevens, the meddling veteran, surveys the scene with military precision, and I can already see the wheels turning in his head. You don't belong in this neighborhood anymore. I call out through my rolled-down window, my voice carrying the authority of someone who owns half the block. Family or not, contracts are contracts. Elena's eyes meet mine, and for a brief moment, I see David in them. The same defiant glare he gave me when he discovered those missing documents months before his final deployment. The dog's ears perk up, and its steady gaze unsettles me more than I care to admit. My phone buzzes. A notification. My hand trembles slightly as I read, "Oude justice served trending in your area." Someone's filming. I spot them now, phones raised, recording my moment of triumph. But why does it feel like quicksand beneath my feet? "Mr. Blackwood." A voice cuts through the rain. "The VA office needs to speak with you about some irregularities in the benefits transfer." Mark Stevens stands straighter, his military bearing evident. "They're particularly interested in the documents you filed last month." My fingers instinctively touch the gold pen in my breast pocket, the one I used to forge David's signature. It's been my lucky charm, a symbol of my cleverness. Now it feels like it's burning through my expensive suit. Looking back, I remember the day David caught me adjusting those papers. "Family protects family," he had said, disappointment heavy in his voice. I had laughed, then secure in my position in my connections. "Nobody stops Richard Blackwood," I had boasted, especially not a soldier playing hero. But now as I watch Mark's service dog comfort my nephew, while Elena speaks quietly with a gathering crowd, something shifts. The rain intensifies, drumming against my car like accusations. My empire built on perfectly forged signatures and carefully constructed lies suddenly feels as fragile as the paper those signatures rest on. Will my carefully crafted world survive the next 24 hours? Will the truth I've buried beneath layers of legal documents and family loyalty finally claw its way to the surface? The gold pen weighs heavy in my pocket, and for the first time in months, I question whether I'm truly as untouchable as I believed. The rain continues its relentless percussion, but now it sounds less like applause for my success and more like a countdown. Through my windshield, I watch as my past, present, and future collide on this rain-soaked sidewalk with a service dog standing guard over the truth I've tried so hard to hide. Type power if you've ever felt your perfect plan starting to unravel. Richard Blackwood tugs at his silk tie, the morning sun filtering through his corner office window, doing nothing to ease the growing knot in his stomach. The bank statements in his briefcase seemed to pulse with accusation, each fraudulent transfer a heartbeat of guilt he's desperately trying to silence. His golden signet ring, a family heirloom that once symbolized trust and legacy, now feels heavy with betrayal as he twists it anxiously around his finger. "Mr. Blackwood," his secretary's voice crackles through the intercom. "There's another call from the VA benefits office." Richard Blackwood's hand trembles slightly as he dismisses the call. The weight of his actions crashes over him as he recalls Dr. Harrison's presentation at last month's Financial Advisors Conference. Studies show that financial abuse within families often stems from a perpetrator's deep-seated belief in their superior judgment over the victims. He'd scoffed then, but now those words echo uncomfortably in his mind. The distant thrum of military helicopters from the base makes him flinch. Each beat of the rotors sounds like David's voice. "Watch over Elena for me, Rich." His cousin's widow so lost in grief, she barely questioned his handling of the estate. His expertise had made it so easy. Too easy. Opening his laptop. Richard Blackwood's eyes widen at the trending military spouse support group posts. Stories of financial abuse of trusted family members stealing benefits. "It happens more than you think," one comment reads. "They prey on our vulnerability after loss." His throat tightens as he recognizes his own tactics in their words. The morning's Washington Post article glares from his screen. "Military widow benefits theft, a growing crisis." Statistics jump out at him. 40% of cases involve family members. 65% show evidence of long-term planning. Richard Blackwood's perfectly crafted facade begins to crack as he recognizes himself in every percentage. That service dog Ranger hadn't just looked at Elena. It had stared straight through his carefully constructed lies. The way it positioned itself between them, almost protective, reminds him of his own childhood dog, who could always sense deception. Science had proven that dogs could detect human stress responses, changes in behavior patterns. Had Ranger sensed his guilt? His fingers hover over Elena's number. One call could start the confession, begin to make things right. But the thought of facing her tears, her betrayal, it paralyzes him. Instead, Richard Blackwood pulls out his golden signet ring, studying his family crest. "Have you ever watched your legacy crumble?" he whispers to the empty office. "Type truth if you felt your past catching up to you." A notification pops up. Another military spouse support group, post this time with security camera footage from a bank. Different faces, same story. The comments flood in. "Check your trusted advisors." "Family isn't always family." Each word strikes like a hammer against his conscience. Richard Blackwood's hand shakes as he opens his briefcase, the damning bank statements practically glowing against the leather interior. Dr. Harrison's words echo again. The perpetrator often creates elaborate justifications, believing their financial expertise makes them more qualified to manage the victim's money. The helicopters grow louder, their rhythm matching his racing heart. Through his window, he watches them circle the base. David's base. His cousin had trusted him with everything, believed in his expertise. Now every chopper passing overhead feels like judgment from above. His phone buzzes. Elena's name appears on the screen. Richard Blackwood lets it ring each chime, another crack in his resolve. The golden signet ring catches the light again, but now it seems to mock him, a symbol of trust turned to treachery. He slips it off, placing it face down on his desk. Even his own reflection in its polished surface has become too much to bear. The truth rises like bile in his throat. He hasn't just stolen money. He's betrayed the very foundation of family trust. And somewhere in the city, a service dog named Ranger seems to know exactly what he's done. Richard Blackwood stares at his phone, his manicured fingers trembling as he scrolls through an endless stream of notifications. Veterans Fight Back is trending, and his name is attached to every scathing post. The leather chair that once felt like a throne now feels like a trap, its expensive material sticking uncomfortably to his back as sweat seeps through his custom-tailored suit. His fountain pen, a $5,000 Mont Blanc that had always symbolized his authority, scratches against another document, the sound unnaturally loud in his silent office. Each stroke feels like it's carving his fate rather than forging Elena's signature. Richard Blackwood glances at the growing stack of falsified papers, his throat tightening. The familiar weight of his family signet ring suddenly feels suffocating, a damning reminder of the legacy he's destroying. Through the glass walls of his corner office, he spots them. Elena, her spine straight with determination, walking alongside Mark Stevens. That service dog Ranger pads beside them with an alertness that makes Richard's skin crawl. They're talking to Sarah from accounting, whose eyes keep darting toward his office with poorly concealed disgust. Mr. Blackwood. His intercom crackles. The VA Oversight Committee is requesting an immediate audit of all benefit transfers from the past year. His secretary's voice carries an edge he's never heard before. Richard Blackwood's hands shake as he opens his desk drawer, pulling out the original documents he should have destroyed months ago. Elena's husband's death certificate stares back at him, the official seal catching the afternoon light. He remembers how easy it had seemed then. Just a few signatures, a couple of changed numbers, and those benefits would pad his investment portfolio instead of supporting his cousin's grieving family. The memories of their childhood together flash through his mind. Elena sharing her lunch when his mother forgot to pack his, Elena defending him against bullies, Elena being the only one who visited him in the hospital after his accident. Each memory twists the knife of guilt deeper, but he pushes it away, focusing instead on survival. A notification ping draws his attention back to his phone. A video is going viral, security footage from last week showing him threatening Elena in the parking garage. His own voice, dripping with contempt, echoes in his head. "You really think anyone will believe you over me? I own this place." Have you ever watched your carefully constructed world crumble in real-time? Drop 1. Drop 1 in the comments if you've seen karma in action. Richard Blackwood clutches his signet ring, the family crest, pressing painfully into his palm. Outside, more colleagues are gathering around Elena and Mark. Ranger's ears are perked as if he can sense the mounting tension through the glass. The dog's unwavering stare reminds Richard of his father's disappointment of every moment he chose greed over family. His phone buzzes again. This time it's his investment manager. Several clients are withdrawing their portfolios in light of the allegations. We need to discuss damage control. The afternoon sun catches his fountain pen, casting accusatory shadows across the forged documents. Richard Blackwood's empire built on stolen valor and betrayed trust is dissolving like ink in water. The weight of his actions crashes down as he watches Elena point toward his office, her eyes meeting his through the glass. In that moment, he sees not anger, but pity. And somehow that's infinitely worse. The sound of approaching footsteps echoes down the corridor. Richard Blackwood's hand hovers over his phone, considering one last desperate call to his lawyers. But as he watches Ranger guide Mark and Elena toward his office door, he knows it's too late. The consequences of his betrayal have finally caught up with him, and no amount of money or influence can stop what's coming. His signet ring catches the light one last time as he lowers his hands to his desk, waiting for the door to open and justice to walk in. Richard Blackwood's fingers tremble as he grips the mahogany desk, his platinum signet ring leaving scratches on its polished surface. The security footage plays on loop on his computer screen, his midnight visit to the storage facility captured in damning detail. His own face, contorted with desperation, stares back at him through the grainy footage. "Sir, CNN is on line 1. His assistant's voice crackles through the intercom. Richard Blackwood yanks the cord from the wall, but not before catching a glimpse of Blackwood betrayal trending on his phone's notifications. 30,000 shares and climbing. The sound of his expensive Italian leather shoes echoes through his office as he paces each step, a reminder of the wealth built on Elena's stolen benefits. The dog, that infernal service dog, had somehow led them straight to the hidden documents. Documents he'd sworn he'd destroyed years ago. "Nobody ruins Richard Blackwood," he mutters, straightening his Armani tie in the reflection of his wall-mounted awards. But his hands won't stop shaking. The military honors plaque, his prized possession, seems to mock him now. He'd always polished it daily, loving how it lent him an air of authority. Now it feels like evidence of his betrayal. The elevator dings. Through his glass office walls, he sees Elena walking toward his office, Mark Stevens, and that cursed dog Ranger beside her. The service dog's tags jingle with each step, a sound that will haunt Richard Blackwood's nightmares. "You can't come in here," he shouts, but his voice cracks. Security cameras capture his panic as he starts shoving papers into his briefcase. His phone buzzes again. Tucker Justice for Elena is now trending too. The sound of his office door opening feels like a gunshot. Still trying to hide the evidence, cousin Elena's voice is steel. The dog growls softly, and Richard Blackwood stumbles backward, knocking his military honors plaque to the floor with a crash. "You don't understand," he pleads, but Elena holds up a stack of documents, the very ones he thought he'd destroyed. His signature on every fraudulent paper clear as day. Type "Justice" if you want to see him face the consequences, flashes across screens nationwide as the livestream captures his downfall. Richard Blackwood watches his carefully constructed empire crumble in real-time trending hashtags, marking each moment of his defeat. Police sirens wail in the distance, growing closer. Richard Blackwood slumps into his chair, the same chair from which he'd orchestrated Elena's financial ruin. The dog's tags jingle again as Ranger sits alertly by the door, ensuring there's no escape. "I never thought—" Richard Blackwood begins but stops as federal agents flood his office. The metallic click of handcuffs echoes through the space, the sound of justice finally catching up. As they lead him out, cameras rolling, Richard Blackwood catches his reflection in the lobby's marble walls. His designer suit, his signet ring, his carefully cultivated image of success. All meaningless now. The military honors plaque lies forgotten on his office floor, its surface finally showing the truth, tarnished. Share this video to remind everyone justice always finds its way home. Richard Blackwood stares at his reflection in the courthouse bathroom mirror, his hand trembling as he touches the ring that had become his anchor of deception. 24 hours ago, he'd been untouchable. Now the weight of his crimes presses down on his shoulders like a mountain of shame. The ring catches the fluorescent light, mocking him with its gleam. Each time he'd twisted it on his finger while lying to Elena about David's benefits, he'd convinced himself he deserved the money more than she did. David would have wanted this, he'd told himself, the words now bitter ash in his mouth. The courthouse corridor stretches before Richard Blackwood like a path to execution. He sees Elena sitting on a bench, Mark Stevens beside her, and Ranger, that damn perceptive dog, watching him with eyes that seemed to pierce straight through to his rotting soul. The service dog's presence feels like divine judgment, a reminder of everything David stood for: loyalty, sacrifice, honor. Everything Richard Blackwood had desecrated. The court calls the case of United States versus Richard Blackwood, echoes through the hall, and his legs turn to water. The viral video of his confession plays in his mind. Blackwood betrayal trending nationwide, his carefully constructed life crumbling in real time as millions watched. Standing before the judge, Richard Blackwood's fingers move to his ring. The metal catches one final time on his knuckle before he pulls it off the soft clink as it hits the evidence table, resonating like a death knell. His voice cracks, forcing him to start again. "I betrayed not just my cousin, but everything my family stands for." Elena's quiet dignity cuts deeper than any knife. When their eyes meet, her forgiveness, so undeserved, so pure, shatters what remains of his defenses. David's memory deserved better. Richard Blackwood whispers his voice, carrying in the hushed courtroom. He protected others while I protected only myself. The handcuffs click shut around his wrists, the sound he'd heard in his nightmares now becoming his reality. Each cold metal tooth against his skin feels like penance. Ranger's tail thumps once against the floor, a sound that somehow carries the weight of verdict. Sometimes, Richard Blackwood says, addressing not just the court, but the thousands watching the live stream. We become so focused on what we think we deserve that we forget who we're supposed to be. I forgot I was supposed to be family. I forgot I was supposed to be human. The ring, his symbol of false success, now sits in an evidence bag destined for a military museum display about stolen valor and justice restored. A reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of courage come not from taking, but from admitting when you've taken too much. As they lead Richard Blackwood away, he catches one final glimpse of Ranger resting his head on Elena's lap. In that moment, he understands David's real legacy wasn't the money he'd left behind. It was the bonds of loyalty and love that Richard Blackwood had sacrificed on the altar of his own greed. His true punishment isn't the years he'll serve. It's knowing he threw away something far more precious than money, family. Share this story if you believe justice comes in unexpected forms. Guard. Richard Blackwood says quietly as they reach the detention area. Could you tell my cousin something? He swallows hard. Tell Elena I finally understand what David meant when he said some things are worth more than gold. I just learned it too late. The cell door closes with a final resonating clang. Richard Blackwood sits on the narrow bunk, empty finger, tracing where his ring used to be, knowing that somewhere above David's spirit can finally rest in peace. Justice delivered not by force of law, but by the unwavering loyalty of a dog named Ranger and the power of truth.